Last but not least, on the topic of new ideas, thanks for the shout out a few minutes ago about AKO, Army Knowledge Online. We're doing the same thing. Here's something that my friend from the Navy may not know. We are the most friended cabinet agency in the United States government. And we started from zero this January. 10 months ago, we didn't even have a Facebook site. Now here we are 10 months later with borderline 60,000 users. Multiply that by 2. We don't do it every day, but we do it almost every day. You're talking about 100,000 page views per day. I have a Facebook page every now and then. I occasionally let my email account slip. I'm getting feedback from hundreds of people from, newly released service members, in their 20s coming back from theater of war in the Middle East or in Afghanistan. Older guys, much older than me, who served their country in Vietnam. All of them have something to say. All of them have something to contribute. We're solving problems using this now barely but almost bi-directional communications channel. So 100,000 page impressions a day. I bet any cabinet agency, I bet any institution would really like to be able to reach their constituency in such an effective manner. Thanks. Okay, so now I'm going to run through very quickly a list of things that we're doing. So what I've spent about the first half of the talk discussing is how are we getting these ideas under the umbrella of open government, under the umbrella of VAI2, the VBA piece, the VHA piece. Now let me just go in rapid fire and introduce you to what it is that we've done so far. Concrete, measurable accomplishments that I can talk about today. And what's cooler than having the boss explain to you on his behalf what it is that we've done so far. Next slide, please.
And as so many of you know, PTSD is a pain like no other. The nightmares that keep coming back, the rage that strikes suddenly, the hopelessness that's led too many of our troops and veterans to take their own lives. So today I want to say in very personal terms to anyone who is struggling, don't suffer in silence. It's not a sign of weakness to reach out for support. It's a sign of strength. Your country needs you. We are here for you. We are here to help you stand tall. Don't give up. Reach out.
Next slide, please. One of my congressional heroes is going to be the next speaker, Congressman Jim Moran, who sits on a committee with one of my personal friends, a guy named Joe Courtney. My journey that brings me to you here this afternoon begins with an irritated, aggregated phone call to my then just friend, he hadn't been elected yet, complaining to him as loudly as I could through a telephone line about the injustice and immorality, regardless of which side of the aisle that you're sitting on, of what we collectively as a society and as a country are not doing in the area of suicide prevention. Joe said, okay, Mr. Big Mouth, I've got an idea for you, and here we are today. You're going to see me do this now very, very quickly in the next 5 minutes, talk about a structured, methodical way of implementing new ideas. And these are things, frankly, that were new to the VA. These were things that are, in many respects, new to federal government. Tell me what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Plain English. Write out the storyboard for me. Because if you can write out a storyboard for me, I can create a schematic for you. I know enough about the available components, the hardware infrastructure, the software issues, by the way, even the cybersecurity elements. I strongly agree with the previous speaker. Cybersecurity actually comes first, but we're going to be able to make a schematic for you. And then last but not least, how do you know when you know? How do you know when you've actually succeeded in accomplishing your task? So let's start. It's honestly a little bit awkward for me. It's very personal for me to talk about this first in the context of suicide prevention. That's not something that you typically boil down into just sort of this clinical process. But in fact, if you can get past the emotion of it, you can help a whole lot of people. Let me show you how we did that. So next slide, please. Jan Kemp and her colleagues up in Canandaigua, New York, already had the use model. That was the easy part. Many veterans don't like to make phone calls. Instead, they would rather deal with the VA. They'd rather deal with the mental health experts using internet chat. Especially for the younger demographic, it's a much more comfortable mechanism for them. Next slide. And yeah, this is the awkward slide of the presentation. Yet you can break this down into a flow chart. We're obviously not going to walk through it, but just knowing what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Somebody comes in. How do you know if it's serious? How do you know if you need a direct intervention? What are the steps that you need to take in order to prevent this debilitating mental illness? And then last but not least, can you measure it? And the answer is yes. Over the course of the last 13 months, 800 saves. I don't know how to measure save. I'm not a mental health guy. Here's what I think. I think if one life got saved, if one of those 800, by the way, it's tens of thousands that have actually used the service, 800 where there was some level of intervention. One life got saved, it was worth me moving to Washington, D.C. for that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through this now over and over again. Use model, schematic, and outcome. Here we are with the virtual regional office, the exercise that we went through. Some of you participated in that in creating the specification. President Obama, please.
We're hiring thousands of new claims processors to break the backlog once and for all. And to make sure the backlog doesn't come back, we're reforming the claims process itself with new information technologies, and a paperless system. We got an amen over here.
So when I walk into, thanks Rachel, next, yeah, great. When I walked into my first regional office, it was like walking into the last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, you thought that this was Hollywood, right? I mean, no sensible human being is going to create such an environment, never mind work long in one. It was mountains of paper. I took that picture on my first visit. And it ends up that you can create a much more sensible structure. Next slide, please. But frankly, only if you want to. The picture on the left, not to speak unkindly about our previous systems integrators, is what they handed to me as they were leaving. I couldn't make heads or tails of that rainbow diagram. Instead, I like the one on the right. For those of you who know, that's a Petri net. And a Petri net is nothing more than a very structured way. What did you do first? What choices do you have? What did you do next? How can we create this completely irrational, paper-bound process and turn it into something electronic, automated, reliable, fair? Next slide, please. The picture on the left ought to look to you like TurboTax. And this is what we do now for our regional officers. It's something that they just fill in, and it's all automated and connected. We're about to go into production with our first system just for the 3 presumptive illnesses from Agent Orange, but you can see how this scales. Scalability is a big factor that we take into account going in. There you are with the use model, the schematic, and the outcome. And President Obama.
200,000 Vietnam vets who may have been exposed to Agent Orange and who now suffer from 3 chronic diseases. We're making it easier for you to get the health care and benefits you need.
And how are we doing this? With use models, with schematics, and with outcomes. And here we are showing you sort of the concept of operations. Now, this may look just less colorful, just, blue and white instead of red, green, blue, and white. Let me tell you, if you were to walk through this, and you don't have to be technical, you do not have to be technical to understand this. If you were to walk through this compared to what it was that we were doing before, you'd say, well, at least I know how to make one. Even if I didn't know how to program it, I know who knows how to program it, and I could explain it to them. As I say, we're about to go live with that system soon. Second to the last initiative, the virtual lifetime electronic record on April 9th, 2009, with Secretary Gates and Secretary Shinseki standing next to him. President Obama charged the DOD and the VA to start freaking sharing records. How hard can it be? Well, it ends up that it's not so hard. You just got to wanna. President Obama.
And just as those delays were unacceptable, so too are long delays in the claims process. So Secretary Shinseki is working overtime to create a single lifetime electronic record that our troops and veterans can keep for life.
And we meet it. So guess what? We're starting with the use model, and we've got these stovepipe data data stacks. And so here's what I say to my DoD colleagues. Here's how I explain it to the Secretary. Here's how I explain it to Secretary Lynn. Look, we in the VA don't want to measure your drapes, right? I've got no interest in picking the colors of your user presentation. I've got no interest, frankly, in learning about your business logic. I would like to know, what's the guy's name? Where does he live? Can he update his information on his own? Is he taking penicillin, whether or not it's spelled correctly? And does he have a sore throat, right? These are just the very basic data elements that allow at least the first blood, the first kind of liquidity that you hear the administration talking about all the time, and we're making big progress in that. There's sort of the platform where you have these apps that we're plugging into it. Again, sort of technical, sort of geeky. Let me tell you that we're doing this again in this openly architected, scalable, modular, extensible, flexible way. And then one last initiative to tell you about, the one that we rolled out last week at Health 2.0, the so-called blue button, wearing one here, and President Obama's the last time.
And today I can announce that for the first time ever, veterans will be able to go to the VA website, click a simple blue button, and download or print your personal health records so you have them when you need them and can share them with your doctors outside of the VA. That's happening this fall.
That happened last Thursday. President Obama says it on August 4th. We deliver it on October 7th. There's nothing cooler than that. What is it? It's the stuff you put in your clipboard, right? Every one of you, I believe, have had some experience with going to a doctor's office and writing down your name for the 50th time, writing down your medical allergies for the 50th time, and your previous medical procedures, and all the stuff from your family history, and you do this over and over again. It's stupid. Now, imagine you're a veteran who's got some kind of disability that you can't write easily, or you can't remember well, or your caregiver isn't with you, and we're making them do it. So the hurdle for them is even higher. So not only is it a stupid system, we've got people who can't actually even navigate it because of their service to the country. I mean, this is, talk about immoral action. So what did we do? We created, for those of you in the know, we created a flat ASCII file and a one-dimensional semantic parse. Sounds hard, is the simplest thing you could do. I'm telling you, anybody who studied engineering 30 years ago was working on exactly that level of technology in their freshman year. The first thing they did in the computer science course is exactly what we have now implemented, okay, with a couple of bells and whistles, but not many. With a couple of bells and whistles, we can now take that data from the VA and read it into, get this, Google Reader, Adobe Reader, Microsoft Reader, and 47 other companies that have signed on to the Markle Foundation Blue Button Consortium. And here's the outcomes. We have over 65,000 unique users and 100,000 downloads in the first month, and we only rolled it out last week. So this is a huge accomplishment for the administration. It's something that we're very proud of, and we think it's actually the first step towards creating this truly portable health record. I like to say that health care reform, which I frankly don't know very much about, don't want to speak on behalf of the administration for that, and I understand the complexities, or I understand that it is complex. I certainly don't understand the complexities of who pays and when they pay and how they pay and access. Here's what I know about health care reform. Health care reform is about better health, and this is how you get better health. Next slide. So, thank you, Goldie, very much for the opportunity to talk about the administration's innovation initiative. We're doing this in a way I hope that you, regardless of which side of the aisle you sit on, and regardless of what your relationship is to the federal government, inside, outside, supporter, not so happy so far, if we're doing this in a way that I think you'll recognize means business and is going to deliver value for taxpayers. And I thank you very much for your kind invitation.